If there is one Batman movie which I think has had its public perception changed most over the years, it's 1992's Batman Returns. When it first came out, it was particularly shrugged off as being too violent and, well, just too darn weird. And so, it didn't necessarily go down as a bad Batman movie like Batman and Robin, but nor was it seen as a masterpiece like 1989's Batman. It was pretty much somewhere in the middle and not really spoken about all that much. However, in recent years, people have gone back to Batman Returns, and there seems to be a shift in its perception, where it has now gotten more praise, with some seeing it as a masterpiece in its own right, and a great movie that was misunderstood for its time. However, what about the original script of Batman Returns, before Tim Burton came back to work on the sequel and make it his own story? An early draft that was written up by Sam Hamm, who also wrote Batman 1989. Now, I would say that there are tons of changes, but to be honest, it's an entirely different movie, in every sense of the word. This original script, which was called Batman 2, wasn't so much an early version of Batman Returns, but a completely different alternative version. A Batman movie that was never made.
Hello, how are you? No, seriously, how are you? Good. So today we're going to explore the original script of Batman Returns, otherwise called Batman 2. And seeing how the script is pretty much its very own movie, I won't go into every tiny little detail, just the parts that really stood out to me. So, let's check it out.
Chapter 1, Gotham City. So like in the eventual movie, Batman 2 starts off with Gotham City in the Christmas season, 16 days till Christmas to be precise. And the city is not only getting into the Christmas spirit, but also its love of Batman, as there is Batman memorabilia being sold all over the city, including t-shirts, keychains, baseball caps, etc. One store is even selling fragments of the Batwing, which crashed at the end of the first movie. And just like in the eventual film, the Yuletide celebrations on the streets of Gotham get interrupted by a violent gang. Only in this script, it's not the Penguin's clowns. In this script, the Penguin's clowns don't even exist, but a gang of crooks with machine guns, whom are wearing white camouflage gear, except for one who is dressed up as Santa and has an AK-47. The violent crooks rob a jewelry store and then make a getaway on snowmobiles. But of course, the bat signal is used and Batman comes down and captures all the robbers and their loot. And that's the last we see of these crooks. They're nothing to do with the rest of the story. Also in this script, there is no Max Schreck, but there are still nasty, powerful people in Gotham, including a businessman called Randall Shaw, who Bruce Wayne has known since he was a kid, who Bruce describes as being a pig. Basically, he's tearing down all the poor slums of Gotham in order to build sky-rise buildings, and he doesn't care that these places are shelter for homeless people. And he even hires thugs to beat up the homeless people to get them out the way so he can start development. Yeah, Randall Shaw is a nasty piece of work. Then there's another businessman in quotation marks, called Walter Barrett, who is secretly very crooked and is something of an underground drug lord. He's been out of Gotham City for 5 years, and upon his return, he arranges a drug exchange at Gotham City docks, which gets thwarted by Catwoman, but more on that later. Also in Gotham City, there is a street vigilante group of Bat fans called Order of the Bat. They are all wearing sweaters with the Batman logo and red berets. And this gang is actually a concern to Commissioner Gordon, who doesn't want this potentially violent street gang to create their own chaos on the streets of Gotham City by delivering their own immoral vigilante justice. They basically seem like a pack of brutes, and they are mainly depicted as being obnoxious and unlikable. In one scene, Bruce Wayne passes one of them on the street and notices the Batman sweater, and he says, "Nice sweater," and the gang member basically just tells him to piss off. What I find most interesting about the Order of the Bat is how they are basically a Batman fan base who want to be Batman but are more of a nuisance. and this idea was somewhat recycled in The Dark Knight, with that vigilante gang who dress up as Batman and wear hockey pads. Chapter 2: Batman and Vicky Vale. So there is more of Bruce Wayne in this original script than we saw in Batman Returns. When we're introduced to his character, Bruce is in the Batcave working on a mechanism that turns his Batcape into a glider, as we see in Batman Returns. We also learn that he struggles with Christmases because of the murder of his parents, and that he has some other woes, like he doesn't know what to get Vicky Vale for Christmas. Yes, Vicky Vale returns in this script, and she and Bruce are in a committed relationship, and Bruce often confides in Vicky about his struggles of being Batman and helping the people. Now in Batman Returns, there is a subplot where Batman gets framed. Well, this happens quite early on in the script, and there is more of a big deal about it, where in the final movie it just happens and then it's glossed over. In this script, Catwoman and the Penguin are killing people and leaving messages suggesting that it's Batman, like leaving little cards behind on their murder sprees, and these cards have the Batman logo on them with sentences like, "Those who feed on the souls of Gotham will suffer my wrath." This gets everyone thinking that Batman is out of control, and it causes the people of Gotham to ask serious questions like, who is Batman, and should we put our faith in him? Except for the Order of the Bat, who think it's fine and acceptable if Batman is now killing people. However, Commissioner Gordon tries to frequently to defend Batman and insist that Batman is not a murderer. Also in this script, Bruce Wayne has bugged the Gotham City Police Department, and while sitting in the Batcave, he hears a conversation between Gordon and other officials, where Gordon is told that he must bring Batman in. At this moment, Bruce turns to Alfred and Vicky in the Batcave, where he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've been framed." So the framing of Batman was a really big deal here. Now, Vicky is still a journalist for the Gotham Globe and wants to do a story exposing Randall Shaw's scheme of building high-rise buildings and his brutal treatment of the homeless people. But she is frustrated with her editor of the newspaper, as he doesn't want to focus on this brutalization of homeless people, but instead the story of Batman being out of control and killing people. And Bruce is frustrated with the paper's sensational persecution of Batman. There are some scenes where we see Batman escape the police. In one scene, he even rides off on a police horse, which is pretty cool, along with an epic action sequence in the underground Gotham subway system. In fact, Batman becomes such a sore point for Gotham City, all the Batman memorabilia in the shops gets replaced with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Simpsons memorabilia. So not only has he been framed, but he's been replaced. Chapter 3: The Cat and the Penguin. In this version, the Penguin's real name is Mr. Boniface, and we meet him in a jail cell surrounded by pet birds. He often gets called the Penguin, or Pengy, due to his physical appearance, but he hates it, and it usually results in him committing violent rages. Mr. Boniface, or rather Pengy, gets paroled out of jail, as he convinces them that he's turned over a new leaf. However, he hasn't. Once released from jail, he has a scheme to collect 5 mysterious raven statuettes, which are the central points of this story, and he hires Catwoman to help him. When in jail, the Penguin has a cellmate called T-Bone, and when it becomes clear that the Penguin is leaving jail, T-Bone releases all of his pet birds, which angers the Penguin, but instead of striking T-Bone, he gives him a parting gift, a Walkman. Later, T-Bone is listening to the Walkman, and a frequency comes out of it, which causes a heap of pigeons to attack T-Bone, mauling him to death and leaving him a bloody mess. The Penguin's lair is also an old aquatic zoo, like in Returns, where he often swims in the pool. We often learn that he has some kind of body temperature disorder, where he always has to keep his body at a chilled temperature, hence his ice-cold lair. A character description which I actually find very similar to what would eventually be done with the Mr. Freeze character. Pengy also has 2 henchmen, called Frick and Frack, who do a lot of his heavy stuff for him. The Penguin also tells Selina Kyle that he likes pigeons as they crap on people's heads. No joke, it's in the script. We then get to Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. She is the curator of a fine art museum, who is also secretly a jewelry thief. She's described as being dark and elegant, with Eurasian features. She has been hired by the Penguin to five mysterious Raven statuettes, where she goes to the Gotham docks to disrupt the drug exchange, as mentioned before, where in one of the supposed drug crates, she finds one of the Ravens. Now she is really violent in this script. She's just going around killing people and slicing them up without a care in the world. She kills most of the thugs at the dock during the drug trade, without even thinking twice about it. She's also pretty freaky deaky too, and is into some pretty kinky shit. The sleazy businessman Randall Shaw, who is building the skyrises, also has one of the Raven statuettes. He finds Catwoman in his luxurious apartment, and he of course is turned on by her, where they start getting it on, and she uses one of her stockings to tie him to his bed, and she then puts on her Catwoman mask, where Randall thinks he's in for quite a time, but instead she brutally kills him, and uses his blood to draw up a big bat symbol on the wall, which once again goes back to trying to frame Batman. She then finds Shaw's Raven and leaves the building, and is then walking on the rooftops. The script explains that Selina Kyle starts purring and hissing from the pleasure of having just killed someone. Yeah, like I said, freaky deaky. There's actually a lot of that going on in this script. She does seem to be into some weird S&M stuff. Heck, her Catwoman mask is even described as being a bondage mask with holes for her eyes and mouth, and it displays cat ears. When Batman first notices her on the rooftops, she sees him, but she pretends that she hasn't noticed him and starts doing all these poses and aerobicizing movements in order to try and turn Batman on. And, well, it works. Batman is like, damn, she's hot. She escapes and leaves him a card on the rooftop, and when Batman picks up the card, he notices that it says, "Looking for love?" ? Selina also leaves messages for Batman in the newspapers. When Batman reads the Gotham Globe, he stumbles upon the Lonely Hearts column and sees a message saying the same thing, "Looking for love?" ? Despite being in a relationship with Vicky, this actually excites Bruce. There is even a scene where Selina knocks Bruce out, where she's kissing him and bites his neck, where Bruce experiences temporary paralysis, as Selina's lips were drugged with a paralysis drug, something which I also found to be very Poison Ivy-ish. Chapter 4. Robin. So the script did also feature Robin. Robin was in the Batman Returns script well into the movie's pre-production, to the stage where Marlon Wayans was cast in the part, and supposedly even getting costume fittings, till the character was dropped out at the last minute. At first, we only hear about him from other characters, and we hear that he's a 13 to 14-year-old who beats up violent criminals, and he spends a great deal of the time defending the homeless people who are being roughed up and made to leave their shelters. He's described as looking grimy with sunken eyes, and wears a ripped-up raincoat. When Vicky Vale tries to take pictures of Robert Shaw's men beating up the homeless people, two of the thugs spot her and try to attack Vale, where Robin comes out and attacks them. And the way he fights really strikes Vicky, as she notices that there is only one other person that she's ever seen who fights like that, which of course is obviously Batman. Once Robin saves her, she thanks him, and his reply to that was asking her for $20. As the story progresses, Robin gets caught up more and more in the turn of events, where he eventually discovers that Bruce Wayne is Batman, and at one stage during a fight sequence, he finds himself in possession of all 5 of the Raven statuettes, which leads him to pretty much getting the bejesus beaten out of him. This early version of Robin is more of a mystery. My guess is he's a homeless orphan who wanted to protect the other homeless people of Gotham. Chapter 5. The Ravens. Now the 5 Raven statuettes are the central part of the story. They are why the Penguin and the Catwoman are framing Batman, so they can throw him off while they search for them. So what are the 5 Raven statuettes? Well, buckle up folks. It goes all the way back to 1880, when Gotham's treasury was stolen, and now the town was desperately in financial dire straits, where 5 rich men offered to financially support the city in return for owning some natural resources like land and minerals and other contracts, which make these 5 men and their families incredibly rich and powerful. These 5 men are known as the 5 families, and this was actually a scheme, as they were the ones who originally stole from the treasury and hid the loot. The 5 raven statuettes were made up for each member of the 5 families, and one of the families was the Wayne family, which is actually a shock revelation that Bruce Wayne's wealth has been built up on this sinister foundations of lies and theft. The 5 raven statues were designed to be passed down to each generation. However, Bruce didn't know anything about his raven statue heritage, as shortly after the death of Thomas Wayne, Alfred got rid of his raven statue. Hence the fact that Bruce Wayne doesn't really know what's going on. And when all 5 statues are together, they will reveal the location of the stolen treasury loot. So the raven statues have been passed down to descendants of the 5 men. And the Penguin and Catwoman are killing off the ancestors who own the 5 raven statues, so they can use them to find the big loot. Okay, is everyone on board with this? Good, because it gets more complicated. Now, remember how in the first movie we see a flashback of a young Jack Napier killing Bruce Wayne's parents? Well, it turns out that wasn't a random killing, and that Jack Napier was hired to kill Bruce Wayne's parents, as Thomas Wayne was horrified of the Wayne family heritage and this 5 family scheme. And being the honest man that he was going to expose the truth about the 5 families and their ravens. And thus, Jack Napier killed him off, thanks to being hired by these corrupt families. And it turns out the loot from the treasury is buried deep within the Batcave. Yeah, what a twist. This leads to the movie's climax at Wayne Manor, between our heroes and villains. And it's a very violent standoff. In the end, the Penguin falls to his death in a never-ending pit in the Batcave, after Batman unleashes a heap of bats at him. Alfred gets shot, but thankfully he survives the ordeal. Catwoman severely injures herself on some chandeliers after a fight with Vicky Vale and then Batman, and these chandeliers mess her up. She's all cut up and bleeding and begs Batman to kill her. And then she tries to kill herself, but Batman stops this, using a gas to knock her out unconscious. Dick, funny enough, watches this and tells Batman that he should have killed her. Yeah, he's gonna be a good superhero, isn't he? The movie ends with Bruce, Vicky, Alfred, and Dick Grayson celebrating Christmas Day at Wayne Manor. The script even says itself that it's a pretty bizarre family unit. Where as a Christmas present, Bruce gives Vicky an engagement ring. Chapter 6, Conclusion. So I guess all this begs to ask, what did I think of this alternative version of Batman Returns? Well, I think it had some interesting ideas. I like how Catwoman had more motivation other than just going on a destructive rampage as seen in the final film. And she is way more cunning, calculative, and crazy, and really kinky. In fact, the Penguin and Catwoman both have clearer goals and drive in this script. I also like how the story taps into areas which asks, is Batman good for society? Does he have the right to do what he does? And what happens when he inspires people who use his image for their own form of twisted justice? Concepts that I think were way ahead of its time. And this version shows that there are consequences for a world with Batman, and not all of them are good. The inclusion of Robin was interesting, however he is another character in a movie already bloated full of characters. But to be fair, he's not quite Robin as we know him yet. I think that this was just a starting point and that we were going to fully explore him becoming Robin in the next movie, which actually did end up happening. That said though, there is just so much going on in this script, and way too many characters and twists and turns. It really is kind of like a mystery Batman movie. I was starting to get dizzy just trying to keep up with it all, as well as who is who. This version is definitely a lot more violent and brutal, and there is tons of blood. That said though, there are some things that actually feel a little Joel Schumacher-ish. Like at the start when the Penguin is in jail and trying to convince everyone that he's now turned a new leaf, he even has a pet bird in his jail cell which repeatedly says, "Crime does not pay," which is cheesy. The Five Ravens is an interesting, if complex storyline, but that said, when Tim Burton came on the scene, I understand why he wanted to do a complete change of the script, where the Penguin wasn't a criminal mastermind, but a twisted, bizarro version of Edward Scissorhands, and the movie itself became a dark and twisted fairy tale. And maybe I'm just too used to Batman Returns, the final film, as I just can't see the movie any other way. But it is still interesting to go back and see what could have been.
Here I have this Danny DeVito penguin mask. It's pretty hideous. I don't even know why I got it. I just saw it at a shop and I just got it without even really thinking about it. I really regret it now. I wish I didn't get it at all. And so that was my look into Batman 2. Now I would definitely be up for this story to be further explored, maybe in a comic book or in a novel, as I do think that this story does have potential if it just had a few tweaks and changes made here and there. But the big question is, what do you guys think of this alternative Batman Returns story? Anyway, I'm Minty, and if I had it my way, this Batman story would be called Batman Curse of the Ravens. Yeah. See ya!